Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP. Now it's not every day I get someone. Now when it comes to artistic things, he is amazing. Chuck Harter is just an amazing person with so much talent. It's unbelievable. And we're going to be talking Monkees. And let me ask you today, Chuck, how you are? And can you tell me, you used to be in a Monkees tribute band. Just tell me about that.
Well, yes, I did. And as you can maybe see, I am wearing my Monkees shirt that I wore in 1994 and 5 when I played Michael Nesmith in the Missing Links, the original Monkees tribute band. And may I say it still fits. So I guess that means something. But briefly, in 94 and 3, I had worked with some Beatles tribute bands. And you know, that was kind of cool. And I'd worked on an Elvis television special, and we cast 4 Beatle actors and an Elvis guy to show when they met in 1965, and they jammed. It was a great scene. Well, the George in one of the groups was a big Monkee fan, and he was a little bit short. So he and I got to talking, and he said he was tired of being a sidekick. Why don't we form a Monkees tribute band? He'd play Davey, I could play Mike, and we need to find the other guys. And I said, well, okay, that's a tough call because we have to find guys who look like them, sound like them, and are funny like them, you know, much more than just a regular rock band. And it took a while, and we eventually did. And we had a Peter Tork and a Mickey Dolenz, and we had a 5th guy on stage that we called Chip Douglas because their records had so many overdubs, it sounded better when we actually had the band. And it's funny, Davey and Mickey both saw videos of our group at the peak of our fame, success or quality. And we used to do 3 sets in order. We'd come out in the red shirts, then the combination, and then we'd do later material. Davey thought it was great. He was really laughing when he saw it. Mickey saw it, and he turned to me and he was half kidding. And he said, "You guys were better than we were." And I said, "That's very kind, but okay, fair enough." So we did it. And the funny thing, Plastic, was, you know, I'm based out near Hollywood, and we all had our own hair. We didn't wear wigs. So sometimes the 4 of us would go out to Hollywood Boulevard or nightclubs, and in the mid 90s, it's heavy metal, or, you know, it's a whole different scene. And we'd be in 60s clothes, but not dressed as the Monkees. And when we walked down Hollywood Boulevard, people were screaming, "Hey, hey, it's the Monkees. Oh, Monkees, Monkees." It was kids, old people, black guys who were rappers, bums in the street, drunk on wine, housewives, families. Every conceivable type of person knew who we were because the television show had been rerun all those years, right? So it was really kind of cool. So I did it for about a year and a half. And then, as many bands do, things got strange, and I quit my own band because no reason to get into it, but it was intolerable. So it's funny what happens. Shortly after that, there was a guy in San Francisco named Alan Boyd who was a filmmaker, and he and I were Beach Boy nuts. So we started talking. So he said he was coming down to LA to possibly do a Beach Boys documentary for Delilah Music Pictures. Now, Delilah Music Pictures had done great documentaries on the Animals and the Yardbirds, girl groups, and so forth. They were very respected for that kind of thing. So I said, all right. So we came down and we wrote up something, and we went in to talk to the head of Delilah Music Pictures, and she loved it. But at that time, the Beach Boys were suing each other. Nothing new there, more litigation. So when the management was contacted, they said, this isn't really a good time because, you know, there's just too much legal stuff going on. Well, what else can we do? So I said, well, Alan, next year in 96 is the 30th anniversary of the Monkees. And he wasn't particularly a Monkees fan. And he goes, really? I go, yeah, there's probably going to be a big hoo-ha with Rhino Records, and they might all do something. You know, let's see what we can do. Really? Yeah, okay. So we wrote something up, and we took it to Stephanie Bennett, the head of Delilah Music Pictures, and she wasn't sure, a bit of a rock snob British lady, but she said, oh, I don't know, but oh, let's see what we can do. So, okay, fair enough. So when she found out that Rhino Records owned the records, the television series, the movie Head, and 33 and a third revolutions per monkey TV special, she went, oh, okay. So Harold Bronson, the head of Rhino Records, who's a monkey freak, he was all over it. He said, oh, yes, yes, absolutely. So it turned out it was a co-production between Disney Studios and Rhino. So, okay, what's next? Well, let's see if we can get all four of them. And amazingly, all four of them said yes, even Nesmith. Wow, okay, well, that's pretty cool. So we did that, and we had four separate times that we interviewed them. Actually, I did the interviews, and it was pretty cool. They all arrived at separate times, and it was funny how each monkey had a different kind of take on what was happening. Well, each monkey, when they came in, acted kind of in character. So when Davy came in, he was very up and charming. Hello, everybody. Yeah, let's do the interview. Hi, Chuck, what's going on? That kind of thing. Really cool. And then Peter came in, and he was a little bit laid back, but he was professional and nice. And he was flirting with the 2 or 3 young girls who were there, hugging him and kissing him. So he was happy. He had, so he was fine. Mike came in, and he was kind of really laid back and slow. And what I think I freaked him out a little bit, because I still had my haircut and sideburns from playing in the Missing Links. And I looked like him during Head or 1968, and he's looking at me, well, I kind of remember the Monkees. And then Mickey came in, who I'd met before, and he goes, oh, yeah, he's into it too. But as I was interviewing him, he's going, God, it's so weird to look at you, Chuck. You look like Mike in 1968. And I said, well, I can't help that. That's the way I am. So it was great. They all cooperated. And then we got additional people like Chip Douglas. We interviewed him. And we talked to Paul Mazursky, who was responsible for the pilot. And Samantha, Mickey's wife, was briefly interviewed. And we had some other people too. So it was shaping up pretty good. So the nice thing about the Monkees was we had access to all 52 episodes. And I knew them very well. So I pretty much advised on most of the editing. So little bits of it in there almost are telling the real Monkee story. Say when we came to the Don Kirshner trouble where they rebelled against him, there's a scene where Mickey goes, here's a story from the land of Kirshner. And we'd use that. And Kirshner was interviewed, by the way, too. So it was really nice how the clips were coming in almost to tell their story. And again, what's nice, Plastic, is because Rhino owned all the records, we have 22 songs in the 70-minute Hey, Hey, We're the Monkees documentary. And for the last 10, 15 years, maybe even 20, music rights are so expensive. If you ever saw any of those behind the music shows on a band, there's maybe parts of 2 songs and they make generic music to kind of sound like them. It's too expensive, but it was all under the umbrella. So we were able to have all this music in. So we did it, and Harold Bronson was thrilled, and I don't remember how long everything was, maybe 4 or 6 weeks or whatever. And at that time, they were recording the Justice album, which was all 4 of them. So we were even able to go there on one afternoon and film them recording when Mike was producing. So we had that, which at the end of the documentary in '96, see, they're making a new album and they're still viable and they're still doing stuff. So it worked out very well. I was thrilled. I got a screen writer credit on it, but I did almost everything else except for the direction. And Alan Boyd, the Beach Boy guy, ended up directing it. And when it came out, and this is a thrill for me because I was a fan when I was a little kid way back when, probably like you were, in their way, at 4 different times, all of them told me they liked the documentary. And I was so happy about that. Just, wow, I gave back for all the joy and happiness they brought to me when I was a little kid. So that was nice. And then in the monkey world, who can be very critical and insane and still is, most everybody liked the documentary. The few people that had issues did not understand budgets for a show, or maybe the producer made a wrong decision. And what can you do? It's the producer. You know, you have to kind of bend a little to get as much good on there as you can. But they liked it. And it finally came out on DVD. And in fact, on YouTube now, Plastic, I believe there's two versions. There's the original version, and then there's one with some extra footage, because I think that has each of them talking about a favorite episode or telling a longer story, which didn't make the 70-minute cut. Okay. So I would, you know, if anybody likes the Monkees, or, and you're very kind to say so, wants to see a really good music documentary that's very entertaining and fun and informative, check out Hey Hey We're the Monkees on YouTube. And so it was a real trip for me, fun. And as a result of it, Davey and I became close friends. Mickey fairly close, because later Samantha, his wife, and I and Mickey were trying to get a film together for his daughter Amy, who was an actress. So we had a lot of meetings at their house and cookouts and stuff. And unfortunately, that kind of fell through lack of studio interest, which was a drag, because a few years later, Dazed and Confused came out, which is set in the early 70s. And we were kind of pitching the same thing in the mid 60s. But still, I got to know Mickey pretty good. Mike, no. Peter, I'd see him occasionally doing a gig, club gig, and he was kind of off put a little bit, but not unfriendly. So it was great for me. What a thrill. And I got paid for it too.
I got to say, Chuck, to me as a Monkees fan, and you know how big a Monkees fan I am.
Yeah.
I'm even wearing my Monkees t-shirt.
We're monkey attired.
Now, let me tell you, Chuck, as I said, you've blown my mind writing that documentary, because it's one of my favorites. And just to tell you, before this interview, I found the 2020 extended version of Hey Hey We're the Monkees, the documentary on YouTube. Go and watch it. It's just amazing. It truly is. And when you've got those scenes where you set up the Monkees, each one to sit down, and you had like the records and all the stuff in the background, and they're sitting there and they're so happy, even Mike, and telling these stories. And you got Davey with the magazine, and he's going, well, you want to see Mike, you know, look at Mike in this magazine, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? That was my thing, both actually. And I thought, well, what kind of backdrop can we use for them? Since they were in the teen magazine so much and were pop idols, teen idols, let's cut out vintage pictures of them and make a psychedelic collage behind each guy while he's talking. And that came out good. And then I said, you know, it'd be even funnier if we get the older Monkee in 1996 to read one of the 60s teen mags about himself, right? And we only used two of them didn't get the humor of it, but you know, Davey is like, Davey's a great guy, man, and he likes color TV, man, but he's not as cool as this guy. And he showed Mike, you know, ha ha ha. It's great, you know, really cool, because I wanted them to show that they had a sense of humor about their teen idol selves from the 60s, and at least two and a half of them did. So that was pretty cool.
But you know, in the Monkey story, I'm just saying overall, they rewrote chapters all the time. And seeing that documentary, as I said, in 1996, it fits with the Monkees TV show from the 60s. It's like an extension of that to me. It's so cool and so in vibe with the TV show. For new fans in 1996, you couldn't explain the Monkees better than watching that documentary.
Well, that's very true. And I think part of that was due to Alan Boyd, the director. He tended to cut a little quick, which is what the 60s stuff was. So if you think about it, when that came out in 96, in 86, MTV here in America ran a 24-hour Monkees marathon. Yep. And it 48 episodes. And the younger MTV crowd from the mid 80s, who had probably not seen the 60s show or in the 70s, went crazy. Boom. Next thing you know, tours, at least with the three of them. And it totally revitalized the Monkees as a touring act. And again, as usual, the Rhino reissued the records, and then later the CDs came out, and even later, all of the original Monkee albums have been reissued in mono stereo versions, different outtakes, bonus tracks, and so their catalog, ironically, for a fake band that didn't play, they have one of the best reissue catalogs of any of the 60s groups. The Beatles beat them, of course, but much better than the Rolling Stones' catalog from the 60s or some of the others. So it's great, and that's one of the wonderful things about the Monkees is when they proposed it, and they kind of wanted to do Help as a film, as a TV series. It's not based on A Hard Day's Night. It's more on Help, because Help was in color. It's pop art stuff. It's kind of surrealistic. So let's do a weekly show about a young band who are trying to be like the Beatles and make it very mod and pop art and that kind of thing. And sure enough, the Monkees series is one of the greatest sitcoms of the 60s. It won 2 Emmy Awards for direction and comedy series of the year in 1967 against some pretty, high-rated competition. And it's just gone and gone and gone. And I'm pretty sure these days, being an older guy, I'm not totally up on it, but I'm sure you can stream the Monkees series even now on some sort of way. So they continue. And 3 of them are gone, but all 3 of them knew how much the fans loved them, how much their Monkee shines meant to them, the fans. Because in the early 70s, if you were an ex-Monkee, you were dead in show business. The 3 of them were totally dead. Mike kind of had a year or 2 of some country rock albums, but he wasn't taken as seriously as, say, the Flying Burrito Brothers or the early Eagles or Poco or that kind of thing. So it was nice that later they all went, you know what? It was worth something. We were good. We meant something. We created a lot of good stuff, especially since we were 4 completely different people that got thrown into this hurricane of pop stardom. And they kind of were. You took 4 different guys and said, okay, boom, and they were thrown into the volcano. It wasn't like, say, the Beatles, who kind of grew up together and then they got a drummer and that didn't work. And then they sort of organically became a band. It was from the get-go. And Mike said it best, I think. It's kind of like if you took a great basketball player, a great football player, a great rugby player, and a great tennis player, and threw them all into a sports team. What? But somehow they pulled it off, and they were really good, and they last, and they mean something. So the Monkees endure. And I'd like to add this. I am a performing musician. As you can see, I got a guitar behind here. If anybody has a chance, do go to YouTube, Chuck Harter, In-Person Sideshow Books. That's YouTube, Chuck Harter, In-Person Sideshow Books. It's a recent show I did, but in the show, I've got a very funny story about going to hang out in Pennsylvania with Davy Jones in 2000. And when we ended up in the biker bar and performed for them. And we had a lot of fun in that week. And Davey was a good guy. And, when he passed, no one expected it because he still rode his horses. He was healthy. He worked out. He stopped bad things that he had done before. And it was a terrible shock. And I do remember about a month after he passed, Mickey Dolenz was appearing at one of those fan signing things here in Hollywood. And I caught him in a moment where there weren't people around his table. We locked eyes and we knew each other. And oh boy. And I went over to him and I said, I'm so sorry, man. And he said, yeah. And he said, he wasn't kidding. I thought I would be the first one to go. And he said, but Chuck, I called Davey about a week or 2, whatever it was, before he died. And we talked for about 10 minutes about the upcoming tour. And we concluded with, I love you, man. I love you too. And he said, I'm so glad I had a chance for us to say that. And I said, yeah, that's kind of like when McCartney and Lennon spoke the last time, and it was very friendly, so they ended on a nice note. But I don't know, just good guys, accomplished songwriters, Mike especially, but the other guys did a lot of good stuff too. And Mickey and Mike, and in his way, Davey, were all very good pop singers. And they really mean something. And so, hey, hey, we're the Monkees. Hey, hey, they'll always be Monkees.
Chuck, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And I just want to say, as a baby boomer myself here in Australia, when the show was shown in July 1967, when I turned 9 years old, first of all, Batman was on the first premiere episode of Batman on black and white TV. And then the Monkees were on 1 week or 2 weeks straight after. As a first generation Australian Monkees fan, and I love the Monkees as much as anyone out there because it changed my life from when I was in elementary school and I saw it in 1967. And it's changed so many people's lives. Just to talk to you, and the fact that you grew up with the Monkees and you ended up writing this documentary, Hey, Hey, It's the Monkees, which I rate as one of the greatest documentaries out there. And to even get, as I said, the 4 Monkees on this documentary, the backing of Rhino Records, all this, it's never going to happen again. And we thank you for getting that and doing that on film, because it's never going to happen again. You must be so proud as, let's say, a writer, producer, and a fan of the Monkees.
Well, yeah, I am very proud, and it was not without its struggles, let's put it that way. It's thank God Alan Boyd and I and Harold Bronson pushed, because as we were about 80% getting it finished, at the Disney Channel, executives changed hands. And some younger executives came in and found out about the Monkees documentary, and they said, what, 70 minutes? No. Just 10 minutes with a few songs, because they're not a real band. We don't care about that. They're not whoever was popular in the mid 90s on MTV or whatever. And Alan and I and Harold really pushed, and we said, no, there's a very interesting pop history story in this. And we pushed and pushed, and I guess we pushed enough, so we at least got 70 minutes. I would have preferred 90, but we have 70 minutes. And if you go to YouTube, Hey, Hey, We're the Monkees, look at the times. The one that's about 70 minutes is the original. There's a longer one, and in the title it says, Hey, Hey, We're the Monkees, extended version, or whatever it is. That's about another 20 minutes. And that maybe is a little closer what I wanted to do originally, but it's there and you can see it. And again, they were also cool in their way, even old Mike, even Mike looking at me, looking like him in 1968. No, it was fun, man. And yes, I'm very proud. And when we were talking the other day about Super Pup and Superboy, and I saw your Facebook page and there's the Monkees, and I said, so do you like the Monkees? And you went in your beautiful Australian accent, oh, mate, Monkees, oh, it's great. Oh, mate. I said, oh, really? And you said, oh, that documentary, oh, bloody hell. Is that? I said, oh, well, I did that. You did that. And here we are. So I couldn't be more flattered, Plastic, and I'm glad to have a chance to come on here and talk about it and talk about them. But I'll tell you one thing I thought was really beautiful. When Davy Jones died, there was a lot of press. And even in Rolling Stone and some of the holier than thou snob publications, and they kind of all admitted, you know what? He was really great. He was a great performer and singer, and yes, the Monkees were valid. And for so many years, especially Davy is the pop star, but he's the least talented. The other guys are musicians, all that kind of phoniness. But Davy really got his due, and there was a real sense that someone who meant something to pop culture worldwide had left us. And I went, how wonderful. And in their way, when Peter died and Mike died, it was kind of the same thing, and Mickey is still going. I think he's doing cruise ships and things, but he's keeping busy and he's flying the flag still, and good for him. So an amazing story. And I think it's funny too. Teenage girls love the Monkees because they're cute and funny and colorful. I'll bet even these days, if the granddaughter of the baby boomer granny who downloads an episode and they happen to catch it, they might actually stop and go, wait a minute, what's this? This is fun. Who are these guys? And maybe they'll watch some or download some tunes. And what does that tell you about generations when when Monkees can still move somebody? Hey, hey, we're the Monkees and they always will be.